Hello everyone, and welcome to a game that can only be described as highly enjoyable. It's a game from round 4 of the 2018 Isle of Man chess tournament, and it's played between Gewain Jones and Gukesh D. Gewain Jones, I believe, needs no introduction. You may remember last year from 2017 Isle of Man chess tournament where he played against Magnus Carlsen. Carlsen blundered a piece, but then he was able to beat Gewain Jones nevertheless after blundering a piece. And after that, Anish Giri said in an interview that Magnus Carlsen is a piece stronger than everyone else. I'm pretty sure I covered that game on my channel. If I have, I will include a link to it in the description below. If not, then, forget I said anything. But he faces a 12-year-old international master from India, Gukesh D. It's a very exotic name, as I've never seen a name with only a letter, as you have here, Gukesh D, but I did check it out, and it seems to be, this does seem to be his name. I will also include a very nice article and a very nice YouTube video by Chessbase India in the description below, so feel free to check that out as well, where you can learn a lot more about this young gentleman here. So without further ado, Gewain Jones has the white pieces, and he opens with d4. We have d5, c4, c6, and here in the Slav defense, Jones decides to play c captures on d5. The exchange variation, c captures on d5, and now bishop to g5. Certainly not an everyday move, especially to be played in classical time format, as it immediately you can see that it violates basic chess principles. Steinitz often said that you should definitely bring your knights into the game before developing your bishops. And you have immediately exchanged a pair of pawns in the center. So probably he decided to go for this variation to get his young opponent out of the book very early in the game. And okay, we have h6, questioning the whereabouts, the future whereabouts of this bishop. We have bishop back to h4, and now, well, you can normally just start developing pieces, knight to c6, for example, bishop to f5, and so on and so on. Black decides if my strong grandmaster opponent decided to violate chess principles from the start, I'm gonna do that as well. Queen to b6, bringing out your queen too early can sometimes be a bit of a nuisance. And okay, this does come with a tempo. The b2 pawn is under attack, but Jones invites him to capture it. We have knight to c3, inviting queen captures on b2. And again, black can just ignore this. Okay, you do have a queen into the game a bit early, but still, this dark square bishop is all the way on h4. There's no way to question the whereabouts of the queen just yet. Black can just ignore it with e6, simply defending the d5 pawn, or even by e5 if he wants to complicate things a lot. But he accepts the challenge. Young Gukesh plays queen captures on b2, and now it becomes a very, very interesting game. Knight captures on d5. Already Jones is threatening knight to c7 check, winning the rook. And okay, Gukesh plays e6, a very nice defensive maneuver. Now knight to c7 would actually lose you the game, because after king to d7 the knight is attacked and you're gonna lose this knight. If you play something like knight captures here, then bishop to b4 check loses the game. You have to block, queen captures on d2, this will be checkmate. So after this e6 move, rook to b1, a very nice move by Jones, queen to a3, and now comes queen to c2. A very nice piece sacrifice, because now if pawn captures, queen captures on c8 will be checkmate, as the bishop is slicing all the way through the dark squares, and the king has nowhere to go. So after queen to c2, we have knight to a6, covering the c7 square, but also now the rook is guarding the bishop on c8. We have e4, opening up this path for this light square bishop, so he can jump all the way to b5. So now e captures on d5 would be again a losing move because of, as we already mentioned, bishop to b5 check. Bishop to d7, bishop captures, you do have to capture, the king has nowhere to go. King captures, and now rook captures on b7. And now you can either go closer into the center with your king and you will get checkmated there, or if you go back, simply queen to c6, and again it will be checkmate. So a very, very difficult position to play for black. Bishop to d6 by young Gukesh. Bishop to b5 check nonetheless. King to f8, and now comes knight to c3. So the knight comes back, and what do we have here? Black did grab a pawn on b2, but white grabbed the pawn back, so black is not a pawn up anymore, and still his king is on f8, but white's king is still in the center of the board, so it's still a very, very complicated game. Knight to b4, attacking Jones' queen on c2. We have queen to d2, and now comes a6, attacking the bishop. Bishop back to e2, and now even g5, attacking the other bishop, forcing him to come to g3 to exchange a pair of bishops. Bishop to g3, we have bishop captures, h captures, and now knight back to c6. So it seems Gukesh was able to fend off the attack, and now if he can get his pieces out, perhaps he can still continue playing this game. But there's simply not all that much time. Knight to f3 by Jones, and here we have queen back to d6, bringing the queen back into the defense. But now, okay, it's true, there's really no point in playing knight captures on g5, even though you cannot capture here, as you would lose a rook. But black can just ignore this. Queen captures on d4, that's kind of the point of queen d6, and after queen captures, knight captures, you would also grab a pawn, and this knight really isn't doing all that much on g5. You just have to bring it back, and then more exchanges would come, and so on and so on. So after queen to d6, Jones finds a different approach how to continue this attack. He plays d5. And okay, we have e captures on d5, knight captures on d5, and now comes knight g to e7, allowing this knight captures on g5 move, but there's really not all that much. For example, king to g7, this does defend the rook here, but then queen to c3 check is very dangerous. Knight to f6 blocking, and now comes rook to d1 with the threat of knight b6, a discovered attack to the queen, and also threatening the rook. If you defend this rook to b8, then you get knight to f4, and this will be deadly. Your queen is under attack, and you do have to play something. If you play queen to b4, you offer a trade of queens, but now this knight to h5 move comes with check. The knight is still pinned, and after you move the king, if you don't want to move the king away from the defense of the knight, so after king to g6, you're gonna get queen captures on b4, knight captures on b4, and now the deadly knight e5 check. King has to move away from the knight finally. Knight captures on f6, black loses a piece, and the game, it will be an easy victory for white. So a very difficult position. So knight g to e7 instead, and only now knight captures on g5. We have queen to g6, and now comes knight to b6, attacking this rook. A very nice maneuvering move with the knight that comes with an attack on the rook, and if you don't have a move that crushes your opponent instantly, you can, threaten to win a rook here. Rook to b8, you do have to react to this, and now comes rook to h4, preparing rook to f4, and the black has a lot on his mind now. Ideas like knight captures on f7 followed by bishop to h5 are definitely here, so queen to g7 first. Making room for the knight. Moves like f6, if you want to get rid of the knight, will be easily met with knight to h3, and after something like h5, as you don't want to allow bishop to h5, then simply knight captures, rook captures, and after rook captures on b7, black is completely busted, and white will have an easy game here. So after rook to h4, we have queen to g7, and now comes knight captures on f7. Jones goes in for the kill. King captures on f7, and now rook to f4 with check. We have king to e8, and now bishop to h5, again with check. Knight to g6 blocking, as you don't really have any other moves. The queen is completely controlling the d file, the rook is controlling the f file, so you can either block with the queen. There's not much point in doing that, so knight to g6. We have queen to d6, a very nice way to continue the attack. Now this comes with a double attack against this knight. You do have to defend against this. Rook to g8, and now you can win this in a lot of different ways. You can go knight to d5, rook to d1, but Jones does it in the most simplest of ways. He simply plays bishop captures on g6. This comes with check. The king has nowhere to go. Queen captures, and now, of course, you can all see the move without even pausing the video here. It is, of course, rook to f8 check. Black still has nowhere to go. He has to capture the rook, and it was in this position that young Gukesh D decided to resign the game. As now rook captures would lose you the queen. Queen captures on g6, and you would not have enough material to continue the game because, for example, if rook blocks, then comes knight captures, rook captures, and queen to g8 check. Rook f8, queen e6 check, and now after knight blocks, rook captures on b7, And to defend against checkmate, you don't really have a lot of options. You have to play rook to f7, but then simply rook captures on e7. You remove the defender of the rook on c8. Rook captures, queen captures, you have a queen against the knight. It's an easy game, and no point in continuing this. Young international master Gukesh sees this, and after rook to f8, he decided to resign the game. So yeah, like I said, I do hope you enjoyed it. It was a very enjoyable game from round 4 of 2018 iomchess Festival. I would like to thank Ivan Daniel Severing and Alex Pural for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. Like I said, feel free to check out the interview and the article with about and with young Gukesh in the description below. There's really a lot to learn about him, as he's one of the newest stars in India. So I do hope you enjoyed that as well, and I will cover perhaps even more games from round 5, so we're going to talk about the standings a bit there, as it is now the half of the tournament, and I will continue the Bobby Fischer series, no worries about that. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon.